Gary.
Cool. Feel free to jump in, ask any questions y'all may have. And if not, then Steven can start with some icebreakers.
Yeah, please. And if you don't want to ask via voice or camera, you can type it into the chat as well, because I get it. Any questions off the get-go from anyone? Jovette, I know you got some questions.
Of course I do. 100%. Um, so in this space of since we're talking about directing and I know you have a large process, what I wanted to kind of talk to you or ask the question about pitch strategies and things like that. From this angle, kind of some things that you utilize um, to put that package together. Um, that's the short of my question.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, pitching's like a whole craft in and of itself, and I can't even say that I'm that great at it, honestly. I try to do everything with my power not to have to pitch. There's the famous story of Mr. Robot, right? Sam Esmail, who he actually went to AFI as well, but he got Mr. Robot made and he refused to pitch it and he just sent the script around town. And believe it or not, eventually USA read it and they liked it so much he didn't have to pitch. But that usually isn't the case. Nowadays, Netflix and Amazon, I was just talking with an Amazon executive last week, and she said that most shows are actually they want to be bought by the streamers and studios in the pitch phase, meaning they don't want too much development or writing to have been done because they want to be a part of that. They really want to get their hands in the mix and develop it. So pitching is super important. From my experience, I create a lot of visual pieces to go with my pitches, right? So in the industry, I would love just for the scripts to do all the selling, but most of the time they don't because people are very fast paced and executives and producers don't usually read. I mean, it's like the interns and the assistants doing the reading. So having a really strong pitch deck is really important. A pitch deck that essentially just, gives you the log line, gives you kind of the tone and feel and look with images, um, and maybe a short summary, characters, um, a director's statement. Maybe if there's team already attached to it, right? Like big producers, or if you have any name actors already attached, that's going to be huge. And you put that all on the pitch deck, keep it short, keep it concise, and you send that along with your script. And again, that's a visual piece that goes with your script that really works. So it spells it out. And then you could go even farther than that, where you could do something that we call like a rip reel is what we'll call it, and that's like almost like a 1 to 2 minute teaser where you take pieces of other films and scenes and you kind of put it together to pitch your story visually as well, right? You might put a voiceover to it, you might put a song. One of my favorite ones that you guys should check out is Rian Johnson when he got Looper made. He had his friend Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which really helped do the voiceover to this rip reel, and that's what helped him sell that movie. But as far as pitching in the room goes, yeah, keep it concise. Really practice it, learn it. Hit your story beats. Really, really, people want to know like more theme than necessarily plot details, right? They want to get a feel for your story. They really want to know the story and keep it concise. Um, and sometimes it can range in time. You have to know, but yeah, like if you're doing like a full on pitch, like keep it to like 10 minutes, right? Where that's when you're pitching like the whole thing, beginning, middle, and end. But have all various versions of your pitch ready to go, right? Always have a pitch that's like elevator pitch. Like if you get a minute with a producer at South by Southwest, how are you going to pitch that story um, as quick as possible? Have a longer form version, and then have yeah like a 10 to 15 minute version if you actually got a half-hour pitch with like a room full of studio executives, right? Um, and it's with everything, right? It just goes to keeping it entertaining, keeping it uh, flowing. And the biggest thing for pitch And for even like a pitch deck, when you have the director statement, it's like what's going to help you sell your movie or your idea to anybody is like that personal relationship to the material, right? Like why you, like why you telling this story? Why are you, um, why is it authentic? And why are you the one that has to tell the story? Because that's usually going to be the thing that'll help you get people on board. People will more respond to the passion of the creator than the story in and of itself, right? So finding that personal entry and maybe even start with that, like if you're pitching like a movie about a woman that goes to be a nun. It's like, okay, well, when I was 18, I joined a monastery and I was a nun for a little while, and my experience made me realize this is a great story. And it starts with this character, you know what I mean? And then dive into your pitch. Um, but yeah, knowing your story inside and out, keeping it concise, and then those visual aspects, right? If you're sending your script around the pitch deck, that's probably the most important. Rip reels can be really good, but it's not always 100% necessary, but definitely put together a good pitch deck. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. My question is, when it comes to documentary shorts, what is a good way to pitch for funding? Not for a studio to pick it up, but for funding for your own little indie film in order to, finish it out.
Yeah, I mean, uh finding money and funding like it's the hardest aspect of all of this, right? Um but I think like it depends who you're going to. It's Echo. Nice to meet you, by the way. But yeah, it depends who you're going to, right? If you're going to friends and family, it's always going to be that passion, that personal thing. Why should this documentary be made, right? And nowadays, the best way to get like a documentary made or a short documentary, any documentary, right, is like a cause. Like what good is this for, right? And people want to get on board something that has a good cause, right? And people want to get on board something that can help others, help raise awareness. I don't know if your documentary has those aspects to it, but maybe there's a twist where you can always kind of go back to that. But yeah, finding that thing that's gonna be a call to action for the person to invest, right? Did you know, like Blackfish, the killer whale one, it's like when they were going around to raise money for that, it's like, did you know that this is like these like half fact statistics? Did you know that these many whales, blah, blah. It's like if you could blow their mind in the process, right? They're your first audience. Like, why are they going to invest in this, right? Maybe it's and then the best way for when you're doing shorts and stuff, from my experience, is friends and family. Um, but for other things, for documentaries, it could be nonprofits, right? It could be grants. Um, this is a great way to get money for documentaries, right? So find all the places in Texas that give grants to documentaries. Find all the nonprofits that relate to whatever you're talking about because they have incentive to invest in this stuff because it's part of their work. Um, and then yeah, if you have a documentary that like, you know, that you're trying to finish, that means you already have material that you've shot, right? So again, put together like a sizzle reel, like it could be like a recently I had a friend who made Austin PBS is trying to help finance films. It was in the newsletter. Hey, see, that's great, but that's amazing. Um, I had a buddy that made a film in Mexico, a documentary film in Mexico recently, and they started with a short, right? It was like it's a really fascinating story. It's a really fascinating story about this this guy that directed films on 16 millimeter in this tiny village in like the 70s, right? Um, and he did it for no money, for no audience, just for the love. And he got everyone in the village on board with it. And so it's such a great kind of story about cinema and Mexican heritage that they put together like a 2-minute teaser. And then they went to, I forget who, but it was either the Mexican government or, Mexican cinema nonprofit. And they went and they showed them, maybe like PBS, and they showed them this teaser, and that got them funding to do the feature. So definitely put together if you already have some material shot. If you don't, go out and shoot something, right? Because you can do that for a documentary way easier. You don't have to manipulate, reality so much. You can just go out and film stuff. So I'll definitely say put together something that can really sell your idea, have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and always know your audience who you're pitching to, right? If it's your friends, your family, you know what they're interested in. If it's specific to this nonprofit or to PBS, watch their other work, see what you can tailor this to their desires. And then again, yeah, passion goes farther than anything I've ever seen in pitching, raising money than anything. People get behind, they want to get behind passion, right? So come forward with your passionate pitch, but also have that material ready to go. A teaser. It could be, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Just have something that really, uh, shows people what that documentary film is going to be and what it's going to be about. And then you should go to PBS and get that money.
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question. Anyone else? Zach, Shaw. Thanks for the Austin PBS uh, tidbit, Michelle. Appreciated.
You're welcome.
Any questions from you, Michelle?
Well, it just seems kind of hard to, I mean, the financing, that's a huge question for me. So Austin PBS is trying to take care of those who have ready material for film. Mine isn't film, it's TV, but just getting in front of the right people to put it on the major broadcast stations. I just saw recently that something called Cedar Ranch is it's a local show, and it looks like they have good money to produce it, what they have. Um, yeah, just how do you get in front of the right people is, and it's probably one of those once in a blue moon things. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, it's like even Martin Scorsese, this is what I say, even Martin Scorsese has trouble finding funding for his movies nowadays, right? Now think about that. He's one of the greatest living filmmakers of the past, 70 years or whatever, however he's been making movies, 50 years or more. And he still has a hard time, right? And he still can get in front of those people. And it doesn't always work. So, I'm still struggling and dealing with it myself, right? It's like there's no like maybe, Sean Baker just won an Oscar for Nora, right? Um, Now he'll have a blank check, probably the first blank check in his entire career. He's 54 years old. He's been making movies since his 20s. He didn't really make a splash until he made Tangerine uh, when he was 44, right? And he just makes personal, um, very great movies. And I'm greatly inspired by him, and I need to take more notes from what he's done in his career. And he's just not waited for anybody to give him money or to say that you can make a movie now or you can make this show. He's gone out and continually, ever since he could, scrape together a little bit of money, whether it came from friends, whether it came from his own pocket. And he's made movies continually, and they've continued to upscale until now. He just won an Oscar, at 54, but he made history by winning writing, directing, editing, and Best Picture, right? No one's ever done that before, right? And the only reason he got that good at writing and directing and editing is because he's been making all his own stuff since he was in his 20s, right? Editing, saving when you don't have money, you got to do everything yourself. So my advice to you guys and myself, right, is don't wait for that money. Don't wait for the funding. And I just go out and do what you can now with what you have, right? Maybe that project, Michelle, maybe that sits on, maybe you wait to get pitched that so that you get the right time. It's not that you don't send it around, right? I'm always sending stuff around. I'm always sending emails, scripts. I'm always making phone calls. I'm always having meetings. But then I'm always trying to work on something that I could do myself with like no money as well, right? Because then you're making that thing and then you get that into festivals and then people see that, then you get that meeting with so and so, and then you pitch that show that you've been developing for, like Mad Men, he's developing for like 20 years or something. Sopranos as well for like 10 years. So um, I would say, as far as getting in front of the right people, it just, work begets work. If you're doing something, people are going to pay attention. Um, but yeah, I mean, I still am in that same boat, right? And I hate the term networking. So like I don't preach it. I don't think about it for myself, right? I hate it. It doesn't do you any good. Go out, go to events you want to go to, work in films that, with people and collaborate and make friends, right? Make friends because every job that I've gotten or every connection that led me to somewhere else where I could be in a room with, bigger fish or quote unquote people with money has come from a personal friend relationship, right? So make friends, collaborate with people, always be seeking opportunities, always be aggressive with your stuff, right? Like I get as I'm going out to try to like send my scripts to people and I'm meeting with people, I'll get sent a script like, hey, yeah, no, networking, don't do it, just make friends. It's a dirty word. Uh, but yeah, I will get emails from writers like, hey, I saw your film Useless Humans, do you want to read this script? And I'll take that email and I'll read that script. If I love it, maybe I'll try to option it and I'll try to go out and get that movie made. But point is like shoot your shots all the time. And again, I'm still preaching this stuff to myself as I'm telling you guys. It's like you just continue to shoot your shot, continue to write, continue to try to get that thing made, and passion and persistence will eventually get it made. Like every project I've seen got made from friends around me, or every indie film that I've like, worked on in the past 2 years that weren't my own films. They were directors' passion projects. They were just people that didn't give up on an idea. They just kept going, kept looking for that person that was going to be interested, kept trying to get it made. We're going to make it no matter what. And then people always want to get on board a moving train, right? It's like I'm making this, I'm shooting this documentary. We got, we're making it now. Check out this piece. Do you want to be a part of it? It's in motion type of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm still learning, and the thing that I've learned from this industry is that no one knows. No one has any idea what's going to work or what's going to sell. No one knows how to get films even financed like, 100% efficient, every time. It's trial and error, and it's like, it's constant, rejection and constant failure, but that's what you keep getting up. It keeps making you better. And if you want to make something, um, you truly do have to will it into existence, you know. But yeah, trust me, I'm still trying to get that next movie made, a couple, and you know, um, it's hard. It's really difficult, but keep you just got to keep doing it, right? And then the more you pitch it, the better you're gonna get. But not holding any attachment, whether like someone helps you make it or not, because no one, most people don't want to. No one wants to help you, right? Like everyone, like they only want to help you if it's helping them, right? So how does your film, how is that going to help PBS, or how is that going to, what do you have to offer, right? Um,
You're
so,
telling the whole story.
yeah.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, no, it doesn't stop, but you do it because you love it, and if you want to get that thing made, you have to find a way to do it. And it's funny, as I'm saying this, I'm like thinking about, my own projects, and it's like, well, dude, you gotta do that too, because we just want like we want to just like pitch it to someone and have all the money show up, or like we want to, it just doesn't work like that. Any suggestions on best places for a new director to host a screening of an independent film or doc made here in Austin? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty new to Austin. I would say any place you could get a big screen and fit a lot of people. That's a good place to do it. I mean, Austin Public, they offer like a work in progress screening, or I'm sure you could set up a screening for your film or doc there, and I think that would be a great place. Obviously, you could do the AFS theater, but I think that's quite a bit harder to do. Um, and also Alamo, actually, you can get I think you could rent out a theater for pretty cheap, and that's an awesome place to, screen something. But as far as, not hosting, there's festivals. If Austin Film Society, I mean, Austin Film Festival is great, and totally, achievable. Um, South by Southwest is much harder to get into. Not that you can't, because you definitely can. So I would say South by Southwest and Austin Film Society are great places to screen. George Washington Carver Branch Museum, a little over 400. Okay. Michelle's got all the information. She's helping out more than I am.
No, you're helping.
Yeah, Austin Public too is like, great place to screen. They got a theater there. Okay, if it was made with Austin Public Research, then you could use Studio One to screen it. And I figured everyone here is in the producers program. Need to be certified in Studio One. All right, thanks, Doug. But yeah, it's a great place to screen as well. But I would say anywhere that you can, put up a screen. Like I had a buddy right after we graduated undergraduate, he started his own film festival and he ran it for a few years and then he moved to Brooklyn and he stopped doing it. But he started a film festival in his backyard. They would just rent a projector. They would put up a big screen and they'd have everyone come out, barbecue, BYOB, and it was amazing. Works in progress is an AFS program as well. Need to be a make level or up AFS member to apply. Okay, I didn't know that either. So that's also good to know. But yeah, anywhere you can show your work, right? Any festival is obviously do a little research into the film festival first. But any film festival that you can get your work into to screen, like anytime, because you make this stuff to have an audience. And there's nothing like it. So I would say anytime, any place that you could get your film, your work in front of people, do it. Um, and there's a lot of even smaller film festivals in Austin that you could get into as well. But yeah, hosting, yeah, any place with a screen that and big enough to fit people. Anyone else? Anything about like, actually working as a director and because the thing is like, uh to get people to invest some stuff and to get something made, yeah, is a big part of it. But to be a skilled craftsman, to actually do something with that money, is a whole nother part as well. You got to be good. You got to practice. East Side Cinema. Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Doug. 400 bucks, 3 hours. That's not bad. Definitely doable. But you could also submit to several film festivals with that as well. Not saying film festival is the only way to go, but like I said, anytime you get your work in front of people is great. Any other questions from anyone? Zach, you've been awfully quiet. You got any other question? Actually, no, you just asked that question. When directing, how do you motivate people to do the best work? How to lead them? That's a great question, Michelle. Most directors think that directing is just being creative and artistic, and they neglect to think about the fact that yeah, you're leading an entire crew of people, right? And that is part of your job as well. I believe everything from the moment you show up on set, everything you do and say is a form of directing, right? Because all the energy trickles down from the top, right? Everything you do, your behavior, everyone like is waiting. Like when the day starts, everyone on set is waiting for the director to come in, because we're all working for the director, right? When you're on set. And so it is a place of privilege, right? But it's not to be, you know, taken lightly at all. So, I'm a big believer that a large part of your job is leadership, and the energy does trickle down, and your behavior, you lead the way by what you do as well, not just your directions, your vision, but how you behave, right? So for me, it's like being a good leader and motivating your crew is inspiring people, right? um so having a plan, having passion, having a vision, but being kind, being humble. But people aren't going to work hard if you're not working hard, right? So it's like, if you're working hard, you're doing the best you can, that's going to rub off on people, right? If you're kind, you're treating people fairly, that's going to rub off on people, right? Everything is felt by the rest of the crew. But I believe that, you have to inspire them to do their best work, not demand they do their best work. And how do you inspire people to do their best work? Well, for one, nobody wants to be told what to do, right? Nobody wants a boss, right? The minute, like my whole life, the minute someone tells me what to do, especially as a creator, right? Like do it this way, cut it this way, or as an actor, say it this way, it's going to shut you down. Right. So a lot of what I try to do as a director is like, well, maybe we do this. No, no, no. What do you think about that? Like, I was thinking in this scene, maybe we play it like this. And the thing is, most people want a director to tell them what to, they want not tell them what to do, but they want to know, they want to have that you have their best interest, that you have a plan, that you have a design, but then they want to be given the freedom to make it their own, no matter what their job is, right? Whether they're production designer, the cinematographer, the actor, right? They want to know that you have a clear vision, but they also want to know that you're a collaborator and you're open to their ideas and what they're going to bring to the table. And I'll tell you, like a lot of times, like when you're in directing mode, um, when people bring suggestions to you, like a lot of times you want to shut it down because you're like, no, I have this plan. Like I want to do it here at this angle right here. And so sometimes like when people like say something, your first instinct is like almost when you get notes on the script or something, your first instinct's like, no, I'm doing it this way. And I would just always, I remind myself to like always listen, always take it in. Um, and really consider it before you say no, or you go back to doing what you were doing. Because the thing is, like, many young directors feel like, and many new directors, I should say, feel like if it's not their idea, like it's not their vision, it's not their movie, and they become no to everything and blocking, and then they controlling, right? And they build very bad sets, very bad environments, um, hostile and toxic. And then I would say they don't even get the best results. It's like it should be a playground where everyone's invited to play with you. And you have a clear plan. You know what you want. But I would also say is like, you have like, on a set, whatever it is, on a medium-sized budget that I've been in, you have like 50 people there working for you, right? These are 50 minds, right? And if you choose people correctly, you hire people correctly. Like you hire the cinematographer because you like his work, their work. You hire production designer because you like their ideas. You hire this actor not just for the way they look and the way they deliver the line, but most actors are really creative, um, and good writers too. So my point is, it's like, be open to every idea that's coming on set, and people will feel that openness. And the greatest part of being a director is you still are that filter to your vision, to your idea, because you get to say yes or no, right? And so always be open to every idea, because the best part is like if you say yes, right? Like best idea wins. You might have an idea, but someone, if you recognize that they have a better idea, they just improve the movie, right? And so I try to build a set that's very much like that. And then in doing so, you create a really fun, elastic place where people feel free to express themselves. They want to work for you because you're passionate, you have good ideas, you're working hard, but also you're not an a-hole, right? And they want to help you make your vision, but they also want to play and they want to create, right? Because and they want to and then they're going to treat people kind and you're going to have good energy. Obviously, there's always bad seeds, but it all trickles down, right? People that come in nasty people or that they have a toxic energy, they're like bullies, right? You're making fun of this person. Well, that trickles down, right? People take out all that aggression all around. So it's a very long-winded answer, but yeah. Have you ever directed yourself as an actor in a film, or do you happen to have any guidance toward any research on that? I had a question, but I'm curious about this as well. Yeah, Zach, I that was how I started, I mean, as a kid, I grew up, obsessed with movies and TV, but mainly I've always loved movies. And yeah, and at first I was obsessed with, as a kid, you don't know any of the making. So you just see the characters and the actors and the performances and you think everything is just done by them. So I was obsessed with that. And then, when I first started making short films, again, I had an existential crisis, like, what do I want to do right now? Well, my dream was always to be, an actor. I don't even think necessarily like director kind of was second. And so when I had that existential crisis, I was like, all right, but I kind of always wanted to do everything. So I was just like, I picked up a camera, cast a friend, and acted in the film with him. That my first short film ever. I acted in it, wrote it, directed it. Sorry, I get a lot of bugs in here. Um, and and I've done that a lot since, and then and then I focused on acting and I acted in a lot of short films. And then I eventually went to LA and I acted in some features for other people and some TV, a lot of short films. And, acting can kind of feel like a dancing, like you're a dancing monkey. And, I got tired of it because if the script's not good and the director's not good, like you have no chance as an actor to give a good performance or even really enjoy the experience, right? Um, and so yeah, like when I go back to not that I still will audition for stuff and I've been pursuing acting a little more, but I still my passion, like not my only passion, but when I get to write, direct, and act, or just write and act, I mean direct and act, yeah, it's really challenging. It's really fun for me, and I do enjoy it because um, I enjoy it because it's like full authorship, right? It's like a singer-songwriter. It's like like um Woody Nelson's writing a song and playing it, right? Sometimes that's what I want to do, not always. But yeah, it's really challenging. It's really hard. And the one thing that you miss out on when you're acting for yourself is that you have no one to kind of reassure you whether it's good or not, or to give you any notes, right? And that's what you're always looking for as an actor when you're working for another director, right? You're just trying to please the director, right? Was that good? Did we get it? Because you can't really tell um when you're doing it really. I mean, it feels good, but I think if you can have someone like that around, whether it's a trusted, partner or a cinematographer, someone that can kind of help with that a little bit. Or in my past, I've always relied on friends when that are in it with me, but also when I go in the edit room, on those projects, I'll have an editor that, can judge my performance and help me choose the best takes. Um, but as far as doing it, yeah, you could have a co-director or it could be the AD or the cinematographer that you trust. I mean, when I do it on my own, it's really like I kind of just more do a lot of takes. That's kind of my solve for a lot of it is doing a lot of takes, making sure that I've tried multiple different things. Um, but really that I've planned super well on my shot list, that I've worked with my cinematographer, that I've worked with all these collaborators so that when I show up on set, that I can start to just focus on the performance more, at least while the camera's rolling, right? And then sometimes what's really nice about it is like when you're only acting, you're so focused on acting that you might overthink things. But when you're directing and acting, because you have so much on your mind as a director, that sometimes it can release you a little bit from all the overthinking as an actor, and then you could go out and just kind of be in the moment. Um, but yeah, I'd definitely say having some trusted people that can help, whether it's in the edit room or it's on set, just even friends like, oh, did I get it? And then doing multiple takes, being over prepared, with your shots, with your planning, so that at least, when you get there, you can start to focus on the performance enough to give your best effort. Um, yeah, those are probably the biggest things.
I have a question. What um what advice do you have to give to someone who is not only directing but also camera operating?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I've done this, too. One time I made this film called I Wasn't Me. It's a POV short film on YouTube. You guys should check it out. But I wrote it, acted in it, directed it, and I was the camera operator because it was a POV film, so I had the camera on my head. And I just wanted to combine everything that I could do into one film. It's called I Wasn't Me. That's probably one of my most successful little shorts. Shot it entirely on a GoPro, and yeah, all from a POV perspective. But yeah, my advice to that is, that's kind of one of the best places to be, in many respects. That's why Steven Soderbergh, right? He's his own cinematographer, camera operator for every film he's ever made. And what he says, it's just the best because, I'm right here and all I have to do is whisper to the actors. You know what I mean? Like he's not back behind a monitor. Tarantino sits right next to the camera. He's never at a monitor, actually. He's at the camera watching the performances so he can watch everything. He's not even looking through the camera very much, right? He trusts his DP. He set up the shot. He knows it. He knows how it's looking. And so he just watched the performance, make sure he gets it, gets the performance right, gets the scene right. But yeah, for you, camera operating and directing, I think it's just a great combination. I mean, the only advice, really is like, make sure that you're not just only focusing about the image, right? Because that's what you have a tendency to do when you're camera operating, when you're cinematographer, you have a tendency to just be like, when you're watching the scene, sometimes you're just watching the frame and you're watching the movements and the framing and the composition, and you get so wrapped up in the framing in the composition that you forget to watch the emotion or you forget to watch the dialogue or you forget to watch. So my best advice to doing both of those things is always make sure that you keep the director hat on as well, right? That you're reminding yourself, okay, got the shot, it looks great, but also like pay attention to the performance. Maybe peek out from behind the camera every now and then, right? Like you got your one eye on and looking through the lens or you're looking for your viewfinder, but maybe every now and then you're just looking up, checking in with them to make sure that the reality is looking good. But yeah, that you're also focusing on the emotion, the beats, the scene, and not getting so wrapped up in how it looks. I think is probably one of the only challenges in that. But I think it's great. I think, like Spielberg will operate a lot of his stuff. Schindler's List, he operated the camera for everything. And the good part about that is like, again, that's why I made that one thing. I did everything, or when I want to act or and write and direct, it's because, the more you do, the less you have to communicate your vision and ideas, right? Sean Baker, again, he won writing, directing, and editing, right? That's how he can craft, right? That's that singer-songwriter stuff. The more you do on the film, the more control you have over the film, the more it will be truly your creation and it'll be truly your vision, right? And I think one of the hard things about being a director is being able to articulate, communicate your ideas to your collaborators, give them the freedom and inspire them, but also make sure that you keep that control and that it is still how you want it to look, that it is still, so point is when you're operating and you're directing, you just have one less person to communicate with about framing, about lighting, about movement of camera, and you could just do it, you could feel it out, you could discover it. So yeah, I would just say keep the director hat on, keep focused on the performance as well, the emotion and the beats of the story. Okay, Lady Madeline. Was that helpful? I'll go.
Yeah, it was. It was. I have a question after this person's question gets answered in the from the chat.
Yeah, I mean, if it does it relate to your last question? If so, you could just ask that
Oh
one.
yeah, it does. It's kind of funny. Um, it's a question about when you are directing, being a camera operator and trying to work with another camera operator. Um, what is kind of, I guess, kind of like a good way to go about it, or I guess like an interesting way to go about it, because I know you're behind the camera and you're like, I'm focused on this, but also I need to focus on this and this to make sure everything goes as planned. And everything can change going through. But that was my question relating to the other question.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely like that comes into definitely having like a good plan and a good strategy going into the shoot, right? Like really planning together beforehand because you're gonna get so focused when you're there. But yeah, planning beforehand, right? Like what's the plan? Like what like are you camera A, I'm gonna be all the medium close-ups and the close-ups. Camera B, I want you to be always the wide, so that way that, there's no fumbling around every moment, like who does what. Or maybe it's more specific than that, but yeah, I would say have a good plan beforehand, have really great communication. Everything that you want to do as a director is because like the shooting of things is so unpredictable, is that you always want to like anything that you can have predicted and secured and safe before shooting, the better, right? That's why directors work with the same people so often as well, because you're eliminating like any of the unknown, right? So point is first hire a camera operator that you get along with, that you've worked with before, hopefully. Maybe not even in that respect where you're directing him, but that you just know them, right? And that you've worked with them. If you can't have that, then hopefully they're just professional. And again, you have some planning beforehand and you know it's what. And then on the day when you're shooting it, yeah, just like one, like, again, like people want to feel some sense of creative control of whatever they're doing. They want to have some freedom. Um, and they want to feel passionate about what they're doing as well. They don't want to just be your monkey with a camera going wherever you want them to go, right? So I would just say clear beforehand, and then everything for me with directing and working with other people is just clear and concise, right? Like no long-winded, just like, make sure that, you're working on your shot, most of the time you have some time, right, where it's like, okay, you set up your shot, whatever camera is the main priority, right? You set it up, you got it ready to go, and then go over with camera B operator, and maybe you let them set that up alone. You're like, hey, go get a wide, I'm gonna set this up. Let them set that shot up and then go over after you've set your shot up, right? You've worked on the lighting together, you've worked on the scene together. Go over, check out their shot, and then make your change, make your tweak. Say, oh, it looks great, but maybe like we could be a little tighter, a little less headroom. Again, direct, concise. Boom. All right, got it. Okay, cool. And then make sure that you're locked off the whole time, whatever it is. All right, back to business. Back to your camera, and then you gotta just trust them. Because you can't be, I mean, you could have, you might have a rig where you have both monitors set up on your camera or nearby, right? And then, I don't know what the shot is, but if it's static, then you're just looking at, you're looking at both frames on the monitor, and then, you probably have a walkie, or if you're not on, it's not that big of a production, just, tap them if you want to make an adjustment, and uh, uh, and then make your changes, But I would say, again, you know, collaborate, some freedom, but know what you want, and just um, know how to articulate that, and then just be multitasking. Prioritize, I would say, your camera, right? And then and then work with them on their shot after you have the hero shot set up.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that answer as well. That really helped.
Cool. All right, Lady Madeline, how do you recommend balancing about managing being the producer, director, and write? What advice or lessons learned? Yeah, it can be a lot. The good part about writing is that most of it happens before, And that's the part I've grown to really like cherish the most because it's the one thing that you do entirely alone. And I've written a lot with writing partners, but I just never really love it because I think writing such a solitary. I enjoy solitude, so I love the solitary act of writing. But the good part is, again, yeah, you have the writing hat on, right? And you write with the writer's hat. You keep some. I always keep the directing in mind, right? How's it's going to look? You want it to be visual, you're still kind of thinking that way, but mainly focusing on the writing. And then boom, scripts ready to go. Obviously, it's never done. You're always changing on set, and then you're always changing it in the edit as well. But then I would say it comes time to pre-production, right? To get your shots going. Then you put the directing hat on. Then you go through your script with the directing hat on. And then you really start to focus on how is this going to look? How am I going to bring this to life, right? And then when you get to set, look, you're always going to be rewriting. Because your actors are going to have ideas, other people are going to have ideas. But the good part is by that time, the script so well, um, the writing will almost be like, second nature by that point. And most of the time, the script's pretty locked, so you're solid, right? And then you could really be focusing on directing. Producing and directing, balancing those two could be a little bit harder. Um, I don't really love producing. Inevitably, no matter what, even if, a director doesn't get a producer credit on the movie, you'll see most directors end up eventually being producers and getting PGA union. But because you're always gonna have to do some producing. And balancing those two is pretty hard, pretty challenging. And I love to have a producer because then I could just focus on being creative, but beforehand, you're always gonna have to do some producing, and that can be difficult, right? Because you're gonna have to like produce as far as like, you're gonna have to be coordinating things. You're gonna have to find actors. You're gonna be a part of, producing on who you're gonna hire for the crew, right? You're gonna be producing on, what's the best location, and obviously that's that you're directing and producing kind of overlap. What I like to do is like when I'm in pre-production and I have to be a producer in some regard, right? Like a lot of my shorts I've produced myself, and that was quite painful. I would say if you can get another producer, always do that. Even some of the shorts that I've always done where I produced and I did a lot of producing, I would always bring on another producer, so at least I have someone that is doing that, even if they weren't that experienced, even if they weren't a real producer. It's like at least I have someone that's like, oh, if someone needs to run and handle this, or at least someone's taking care of the food, at least someone's doing these things where I can, at least when I'm shooting, I could be fully creative because you need to create an environment where you can once you're shooting, you are just focused on the creative, on being the director, on crafting the scenes, on working with the actors, right? If you have to shoot a scene and then go and run and figure out, lunch, it's not going to work very well, right? So like maybe even if it's a line producer or production manager, right? I would say always try to find someone that can help you with that. But as far as pre-production and then balancing the producer mind, uh the producer role with the directing role and on set as well, but particularly pre-production now, it's like for me it's like I'll always have this thing where it's like during the day or like whatever, I'll always allot time for the directing work, right? So it's like that day it's like, okay, we're going location scouting all day. Yeah, it's directing, but there's like producing aspects to it, right? That's like the practical stuff about it. We're going to the prop house or going to VFX meeting or whatever. Some of that kind of gets into the producing. For me, it's like during the day, like pre-production, all right, any producing oriented stuff, all me. But at the end of the day, I always set like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours where it's like, okay, now I'm just the director, right? I'm putting the emails away. I'm putting the phone, yeah, if I got a call from someone, I'll take it. But point is I'm setting that side of time every day. That I'm setting that time aside every day to just focus on the directing. So it's like during the day, okay, location scout, meeting, whatever. End of the day, I'm working on my shot list. End of the day, I'm working on my storyboard. End of the day, I'm going over the script with a fine comb and I'm looking at all my beats. I'm thinking about the character arc. I'm thinking about the emotional beats, and I'm dedicating time just for that. Or I'm working with the DP that night, right? And it's like while I'm working on the creative stuff, I'm trying not to think like a producer at all during that time, right? So trying to separate, um, and really just it's about always carving out that time more than anything. It's always carving out that time uh to be the director to because the producing stuff is like it's always going to chase you and it's always going to find you. You're not going to be able to, you're not going to carve out time for that because it's always going to be knocking on your door. But the creative aspect, much like writing in your daily life, it's like you have to carve out that time when you're in pre-production where it's like, okay, I'm just the director right now, right? And you really have to protect that, because at the end of the day, that's, the most important part. I mean, filmmaking is a director's medium. The most important aspect is that, right? So everything you do as a producer is to get you there, unless you're just a producer, right? And I'm not saying just a producer, unless you're a producer and you really love being a producer, then you don't need to worry about balancing. Well, I just feel like you was Bailey's by fire on set. I don't know what that means. Is that-
Sorry, I was trying to say I thank you for one. Thank you. That was very helpful. I was trying to direct and produce. It was back. I was baptized by fire while
Hmm.
on set,
Oh
trying to
yeah,
do that because
yeah,
producing is a lot,
yeah,
a lot. So
yeah. No,
even for a short film, it's a lot.
absolutely. No, it's on set doing both is really hard. That's why I always try, early on in when I was making short films, of course, I didn't have anybody to help produce, right? So I had to do it all myself. But ever since I could, I always try to relinquish some of that. And there's no reason you can't, like a friend. And I would relinquish some of that, especially the producing stuff, because it's like, yeah, it will. It's hard to focus on the creative and the directing when you have so much producing stuff to think about, right? How do we get these people here? Oh, we got cars in the parking lot. Oh, you know what I mean? So if you can bring someone else on to help you, I would always. And in the beginning, when you don't, how do you balance it on set? Man, again, by just preparing so much that nothing will be, on set, that everything's so thoroughly produced and planned that you can be creative when you get to set, or just keeping things kind of so small and homegrown. Um,
We're
not to,
saying that it's okay to even bring somebody that may not be as
yeah,
um, skilled.
absolutely.
Okay.
Like even on the like my short thesis films or my short films in undergraduate, like, yeah, sometimes I would just like our mom, because me and my brothers made movies together. Our mom would just be the person that did like food or whatever, so at least we didn't have to think about that. But in my undergraduate films, like, yeah, I would ask, whoever, like, hey, will you? And no one wanted to produce at that time, but like, hey, like, can you produce on my movie? And most of the time, at that time, right, it just meant like they were handling the lunch every day. But even taking that off your back, right? When you're
Yeah.
trying, yeah, just taking that off your back is huge. It's huge. So yeah,
Yes.
anyone you can have help you, because you need to be able to be creative on set and focused on the craft because it's all consuming it. It's all consuming, So yeah, definitely uh, get some help. Anyone else? I could always go to the ChatGPT questions if people still want to hear me ramble. Does anyone want to hear the ChatGPT questions or answers? No, I shouldn't say that. Doug did them. I mean, he just used the assistance of ChatGPT.
I wouldn't. Don't even give me that credit. No, I was.
Oh, I wasn't sure if he was listening or was making dinner. Yeah, we can go over some of those if you guys are still interested. Is there a yay, nay?
Yay, because you always have something extra spicy that comes out of the answers.
Yeah.
So I'm here for it.
All right. Um, and please, like anytime if this sparks any other questions from anyone, jump in the chat or with your voice. All right. So first question here is what's your strategy for giving clear direction to actors while keeping the set moving? These are great questions, ChatGPT. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like again, direction boils down and like cut that word down, direct, right? Everything I'm trying to communicate when I'm trying to communicate as a director, like part of it comes from I like to think of it as like being lazy, right? It's like because I everything I'm trying to direct with the least amount of words I have to say, right? So always coming from a place like what in this situation, the question is to actors specifically, right? But you're directing everybody. You're directing everything, every moment of the day, your DP. Anytime you give a note, you're directing. But actors specifically, again, yeah, clear, concise, direct. And it's always like me when I'm directing, right? I'm watching the monitor. Sometimes I'm next to the camera like Tarantino, but a lot of times I'm watching the monitor. I usually have it like around my neck, a little portable one. It's amazing. I could go anywhere. I could be away from people if I want to. I don't have to be at Video Village. But I'm watching it or I'm watching the scene, and then what you're paying attention to is like you're like when is something bump you? When do you not like something, right? It's like, man, and everybody has it, right? Where it's a movie or we see something, it's like, okay, watching, something's not working in this scene, and you might not always know right away. So it's like first you have the symptom, right? Which is I don't like something here, and then the diagnosis has to come. All right, what isn't working here, right? And your brain has to move really quickly on these things. Sometimes it could take a second, but it's got to be quick. And so then it's like, okay, I know it's not working. And my first advice to new directors is maybe don't go to the actor right away, right? Don't always be thinking that I have to talk to the actor because their performance isn't working, so I have to go talk to them immediately, right? I would say hold off on that, right? Okay, something's not working, feeling slow. I didn't like that the way they said that. You know what? Maybe it's the line. I'll change the line, right? Maybe it's that, or maybe it's the shot, right? Or maybe it's the blocking, right? You know what? They have nothing to do in this, or the blocking's not working in this scene because they're getting stifled, or they don't have any business, right? So maybe it's okay, go up and give the actor, you're gonna take this peg and you're trying to fit it in this hole, whatever it is, right? Um, and so maybe that helps the performance. So my first response to that question is it the acting that needs to be addressed? Is it the actor that needs to be addressed first to fix the diet, to fix the scene, to fix the performance? Because a lot of times maybe it's not, right? How can I set everything as a director is how can I set the actor up for success? And the first comes in the writing, right? So your first line of directing is making sure that the script, the intention makes sense, the motivations for the characters as far as what they're doing and why they're doing it. Works, and then the scene, the blocking, the props, all that is working to enliven the actor, right? Okay, you've gone through all the options. It's not any of those. Okay, I have to talk to the actor. And the reason I say this is because acting is one of those things to where I think it's like a feather in the wind, right? Like you can blow it a little too hard and it's completely gone. It's off course. So a lot of times young new directors think like they have to constantly be talking to the actor. It's like and they over explain things. and it gets them nowhere a lot of times, right? Because I always say, or they might mess up the performance, or the worst thing you could do is like give a line reading, right? Say it like this: "Hey, it's good to see you there," right? Like, result-oriented directions very not great unless because then they're just trying to imitate you, and again, now they're in their head. They're not focused on the scene and what they're trying to get from the other person, not being in character, right? So that's the last thing you want to do. So I always say, yeah, bad direction is worse than no direction, right? So a lot of times I'm trying to, because again, acting is very much like being in real life, right? And uh, we all do it, right? We all struggle our way through and we find it, and that's what makes things real. So again, you want to try to create an environment where you don't have to talk to the actors that much, actually, right? Or hopefully not. All right, say you do have to talk to the actors, right? But then you go up and you say, you want to be very actable direction, and you want to be clear, you want to be concise. Sometimes maybe it's a little thing like, you know. I didn't like the thing you did at the end with the hand. Maybe just don't do that. That's simple, right? But again, direct, clear, concise. But things that are helpful to the performance, right? And a lot of that I learned from acting myself, right? And I would recommend that everyone try some acting that wants to direct, because again, once you're in the situation, you know it might help you. And so then some other things that you could say to the actor, again, keep it short, keep it concise, keep it clear, keep it direct. The minute an actor starts nodding, they got it. Stop talking, right? That's one little tip. And things like, that they can use to actually work, right? Like, maybe in this scene, you know, you convince, or like, you're not doing a good enough job convincing them that this is the only option. This is the only option. You know that. Convince her of it. She's not convinced, or something like that. Or, you know, you're not, or in the scene, it's like, you know what? I think that maybe do your best job to annoy her, whatever it is, but something that's like, okay, the actor knows, okay, like I'm trying to get at something. I know how to work with this instead of like, be more annoying, right? Well, that's result oriented, right? That's harder to act on as opposed to you really want to get under her skin because she pissed you off in the last scene, right? And so you really want to get under her skin because you want to get a rise out of her, right? That's better for an actor than be more annoying, right? Or be more bombastic or be funnier, I've been told before, right? But things that they can actually work with, right? And again, keep it clear, keep it concise, be direct. For me, like directing an actor is always like tell them what they're doing, and that's it. And then yeah, watch the performance, see, maybe there's something here, or maybe change the line. That might help. Or what are they not doing? You could see their intent's not right. Okay, give them a new intent, right? And then sometimes, if it's a scene, it's always a scene, not always, but if it's a scene between two people, you know, maybe if something's not working with this actor, or you're not getting the performance you want, maybe go to the other actor, right? And give them a note, which will then get a different reaction out of the other actor. And that to Zach, I mean, that's something that's great when I do act and direct. It's like, man, I can influence the actors just by changing my performance, right? And that's really fun. That's really exhilarating. It's like, maybe, I don't even have to then tell them. I could just surprise them. And that's why the whole thing about giving the notes to the other actor is like, if you could surprise the other actor. I mean, you're doing these scenes over and over again. You always want to keep some level of spontaneity, some realism, and that's why you want, it's a very delicate giving notes to actors. Is like you don't want to overnote, you don't want to give line readings, you want to give result oriented direction. So it's like, well, man, how do I navigate this in a way? And it's like you want to engage them, enact them, and then develop a shorthand. And it could be simple things like you know there are things like, yeah, obviously some seasoned actor could be like, just slow it down a little bit, right? That's fine. but always learn the language of your actors right beforehand. Because you might have an actor that's like classically trained, and you might have another actor that's not trained, and you might have another actor that's Meisner trained or something. And every actor, needs to be spoken to in a different direction or in a different way. And then as far as how do you keep things going and flowing with that, again, that's why it's be direct, be quick, be concise, right? How do I, my motivation as a director is always how can I get what I want with the least amount of words? And I know I'm talking a lot tonight, so it's hard for you to believe, but that's always my motivation. How do you handle a situation where a scene isn't working as planned during the shoot? It's kind of similar. Um, so I think it's another thing too with like young new directors. They have the idea in their head and they get to set, and it's not what they had imagined. So they kind of either shut down or they just try to get it to what they had in their head, but it's just not possible, right? Like maybe it's a sunny day in their head and then it's raining on the day, right? So my first bit of advice with that and what I do is like, what I learned to do and what I've loved about filmmaking is it's taught me lessons on life as well. Like, you um learn to accept what is what the universe is bringing you. And right, like well, you get lemons, make lemonade. It's true for directing, right? If a scene's, you know, not working, well, maybe the scene's not right on the page. All right, so now we have to change it, right? And getting to that point quicker makes all the difference, right? I've seen so many people try to get this thing, it's in my head, blah, 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 and then they've wasted like 15 takes on something that was never going to work. So first thing is don't be afraid, plan, 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 prepare, but be willing to throw it out in an instant. And always go with what you're being brought or what you're feeling, or what at the time what you're seeing. Don't cling to this idea because you had it, you know, uh, a month ago in a coffee shop and you thought it was the best idea. It didn't work, right? So quickly change gears to what is working, right? I remember on one of my early short films, I was shooting a scene, and in my head, it was a oneer. It was like we're doing the scene with these two bums, and they're fighting over, I don't know, diamonds or something. And I was like, in my head, it was this long oneer, and we're following them, and and then we did one take, and it just didn't feel right. And this is when I was very inexperienced, and it just didn't feel right. I don't know. I talked to my DP. I don't know. It's not working. Did it again, and DP comes to me and he says, "Yeah, it's not working." And oh, yeah, it didn't work. All right, well, let's get cover. Let's do the first part on the oneer, and then we get here and we pop in for coverage, right? So quickly made the adjustment, realized it wasn't working, realized it needed coverage to work, even though that's not originally what I had in mind. Um, and then quickly adapted and found a new way to do it. And that goes with everything, right? And particularly filmmaking. That's what's so fun about it. That's what's so amazing about filmmaking and why I love it so much is because it truly is, all art comes from intuition, but it truly is, it's a medium where you're forced to use your intuition and your quickness and the skills that you developed very quickly, right? Because it's like a chess game. You have like 12 hours in a day to shoot um, a couple scenes, on my level, it's like at least 5 to 7 pages a day, which is a lot. So you don't get a lot of time. But that's why you got to do it a lot and you train your instincts. And really what it comes down to is just knowing what you like, right? And then knowing how to adapt. Um, and then it goes with other things, right? Like if you wrote uh, a scene for a really dramatic actor and you want it to be really dramatic, but then on the day the actor comes in and he's like really goofy, right? You're not going to change that, right? So I would say then shift it, try to find a way to lean into the goofiness to make it work for the scene. I remember an early short film I wrote, I or yeah, I came up with the concept and then a writer worked on it. But my concept was like this psychological thriller about a group of or two Mexican day laborers are picked up by this dude in the suburbs, and he makes them dig a pool, so he says, and then it ends up being graves that he's going to bury them in, right? And I thought it was an awesome psychological thriller idea. And then, my writing friend who was, writing it at the time, he came with the first script and it was bad. It was so bad. But he was a comedy writer, right? And so I was like, you know what, this isn't working. Your skill set is comedy. All right, let's switch the whole thing. Let's turn the same premise into like a dark comedy. And then it worked, and then he did, and he came back with a script, and it worked really well. So again, don't fight what the tools or the skill set of your collaborators are. Don't fight the weather. Don't fight all these things that are always gonna, be happening. Accept them, embrace them, and use them to your advantage, right? Like like jujitsu, that's what I say. Um, and I have like a saying for it. It's like, the difference between an experienced director and an experienced director is that an inexperienced director is worried that everything is going to go wrong. An experienced director knows that everything is going to go wrong. And so that's the difference. And then embrace them. Okay, what's your approach to balancing creative vision with time constraints on set? You know, Man, I don't know. Because again, you're like you're forced to use your intuition. You're forced to, that's what I love about filmmaking is it's all encompassing and it is like a chess game. It's like how quickly can I move across the board to get to the best possible scene, best possible shot, best possible take as quickly and efficiently as possible. Like that's the goal of a director, right? So you're never going to have any time. How do you balance the creative vision with it? Being sharp, knowing your taste, right? Like Rick Rubin made an entire career of not knowing anything about music or how to make music, doesn't know how to play any instrument, as a multi-million-dollar record producer. What does he say his secret is? I know what I like. I know what my taste is, right? He's made an entire career off of that alone, right? Shows up in the studio, listens to the musicians, says, maybe we lose this part. Maybe we strip this instrument out, right? He's just trusting his taste. So one, trust your taste, trust your instincts, work them out like a muscle, and then, you have such a clear creative vision that you don't have to waste any time. And then but the other piece of that advice is how do you balance is that don't be afraid to take a moment if you have to, right? Don't be afraid, like if if this idea, like you're moving fast, okay, wait a second, this isn't working. Okay, like tell your idea, like I just need 5 minutes to go and think about this real quick or talk this out with the actor. You know what I mean? It's like don't be afraid to take that time if you need it, right? How do you collaborate with your cinematographers to capture the look you want? Um, the cinematographer director relationship is one of the most important, it's like your direct route to what's in your head and capturing the actual vision, obviously the production designer as well. Um, but cinematographer, for me, it's always starting like a frame of reference, right? You start with like, movies and, oh, I really want it in my head. I really see it like, Mandy and, in this other film, like Andy and Only Lovers Left Alive, and so you're kind of building a collage in your head, and like I like to start with my DP of like watching those movies, talking about what it is why I see it, talking about the story, most importantly, with the cinematographer. Get them on board with the story. What is this film about? What are the themes, you know? And different cinematographers are like actors, right? Some like to work different ways. You know, I had one cinematographer who I loved where that's all he wanted to do, right? He wanted to spend like weeks just talking about story, talking about character, talking about theme. And then I have other DPs that consider themselves more like tattoo artists, like just like show me like references, um, you know, but yeah, those two things are the most important. Talking about the story, talking about the characters, talking about the themes, what is the purpose of this movie, the intention, and then yeah, references, movies, still images. You know, I've been drawing a lot of inspiration lately from paintings, you know, some photography, and then put together, you know, you guys put together like a reference lookbook, you know, and then you start there, and then you have a frame of you know, reference, and you have you establish a sort of language to start on for that movie, you know, like oh, like Super 8, and when they shot it like this, or yeah, like in Predator or whatever, you know, whatever it is, like this scene there, and then it's like, all right, you're off to the races. And then, you know, and then most of the time I will shot like I'll go through and I'll shot list the whole thing on my own. And then I'll go and I'll work with, and again, some DPs are different, but and some processes are different. But for me, I'll shot list the whole thing. I'll go through the script. I'll be thinking, you know, I'll know the look. I'll have, you know, I'll put together some materials to show, and I've already looked at them with a DP, but then I'll go and I'll shot list the whole thing. And then it's about sitting down with the DP one on one, as many hours as it takes, and going over that shot list, right? And that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part because the DP I've worked with a lot has like ADHD, and that's the hardest part. On set, it's great, but doing that stuff in an apartment or wherever is very difficult. But anyways, focusing, taking the time, and then yeah, going over that shot list. All right, this scene, you know, one scene at a time. Much of anything in filmmaking is one or two scenes at a time, right? Because that's all you have the time for. Going over the scene. All right, this is how I see the blocking, and then you know, I see it starting, you know, with this wide here, maybe it falls them in or whatever it is, and then you're going over it, and then you know if you can draw and you could draw storyboards even better. I'm not a good artist like that. Um, and then there's you know there's software where you know a lot of times on some of the bigger productions where then I'll go over the shot list with them. All right, get them to understand it, internalize it, and then we might even start doing overheads on like I can't remember the name of the app, but Shot Tech, no, something else. I can't remember. But we'll start making overheads and like this character's here, this character's here. This is where the camera's going to be. This is where the camera will move. And again, if you know, I haven't had a lot of prep time on any of the projects I've done because there's been no big budget. And so it's really just trying to get through that shot list together. Um, so he understands, so he knows everything, the look, the vision's all clear. And then camera tests, right? And then I usually go to all the camera tests with my DP, testing out lenses, the look, the lighting, you know, the exposure, and even the LUT, which is like the determined LUT that you'll load onto the camera, like the look that you'll monitor the film with. Um, but being there every step of the way. And then when I'm on set, right, like I hardly ever leave the camera. You know, like some directors might be like they'll block set, you know, have the camera team work on setting up the shot, you know, gaffing, gripping, lighting it, and they might go off and chat to whoever, or they might go, you know, make a phone call. I stay right by the camera at all times, right? While the lights are going up, while the production design, but staying right next to the camera at all times. So, you know, that just saves you time, right? Like they set the camera up. You see, oh wait, no, I didn't want that lens on it. Oh, okay, my bad. Swap the lens. Perfect. All right. But if you catch that when you show up to set later, right? Or when the scene's ready to go, then you've just wasted time, right? So that's why I stay right there, see where the camera's going, see where the lights are going. Um, and I'm always, you know, my right hand buddy is my cinematographer, right? I'm always there. That's like, you know, we're two brains of the look of the movie. And so make sure that first and foremost that that bond is great and strong. But yeah, I stay right there so that therefore I could catch anything. Camera's in the wrong place, not on the right, not on the right tool. All right. Can you share tips for maintaining a positive and productive atmosphere on set? These are great questions. Um, Tips for, yeah, like I kind of talked a lot about this with the question about inspiring crew. Yeah, just, creating a fun, uh, open, playful environment, um, your work, your behavior, everyone's looking toward it, and so just always, I can get pretty kind of stoic and focused when I'm directing, as I'm sure all you've done it now, because it's a lot. But yeah, just kind of stay in my zone, create an atmosphere where people feel freedom, feel some sense of passion for the project, make a fun environment by, again, that just comes down to who you hire, your behavior. I mean, the best when filmmaking is at its best, it's like summer camp, and when it's at its worst, it could be like prison. But that's all just based on like, one, if who you're with, right? So first and foremost, make sure that you put together and you're part of putting together that crew, right? That everybody that's going to be on this set. I always, obviously there's a lot of people that I don't because you get what you can in a lot of the grip and electric department or the art department or whatever. But try, the department heads that right, that everyone's good people, you get along, that's gonna save everybody on set. But yeah, creating a good environment, making things fun by, having playful banter, doing scenes that aren't just the scene, doing things that aren't just the scenes, right? Like ha having fun with it, creating a place because it's great. Like the whole point of making movies and TV is playing, right? It's a play, So, obviously it can be serious, you can be extremely passionate about it, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's not more important than, people's safety. It's not more important than, um, yeah, people's livelihoods, and making sure that there's a good crafty, making sure that the catering's good, all these things go a long way, making sure, if you can fight for it, that the rates for everyone's good. Um, and uh, yeah, first and foremost, creating something that, people can get behind and be passionate about as well, because, no one got into this work. No crew member got, maybe some, but most people, in this industry did not get into it for a paycheck. They did not get into it for a job. They got into it because they had a real love for movies or for TV, And so never take that for granted, make a place, like Tarantino says, he tries to make his sets so fun that everything's going to be boring afterwards, for all the people that work on them. And he does things like, yeah, bring in like a panini truck at the middle of the night or whatever, whatever you can do to make the set fun. We do things on sets where it's like, dress like this tomorrow, or it'll be like we'll tell everyone to dress like this producer tomorrow, and we won't tell that producer, right? And then the producer shows up and everyone's dressed like them. I mean, that stuff's fun, Um, but yeah, like things like that, keeping it a fun, playful place goes a long way. How do you make the most of limited locations and resources to keep your film visually engaging? Yeah, another great question from AI. Who'll probably take all our jobs soon. Um, yeah, and I mean that's directing, right? So the show I did, Sales Are Dope, that we recut into a feature and now on Amazon. That was a workplace comedy. When I got the script and I helped him rewrite it, but it was like everything took place in one location, pretty much, one office. Um, and people sitting at desks making phone calls for most of it, right? Or talking around uh, a boardroom table, and I was terrified. I was like, how do I make this interesting? So your job is a visual medium. So your job is always to be thinking about how do I make this interesting, right? And the tools of a director are, um, you know, uh, wardrobe, uh, props, lighting cues, sound cues. Um, these are the thing and blocking, right? And so it's always like in like physical concept, how can I make this thing come alive? How can I make the blocking come alive? How can I engage this thing? And with that movie, right away it was like, okay, I can't do a ton of blocking. I can't do these longer takes that I normally like to do. So one, I'm gonna beef it up with more shots, right? More coverage than I've ever done, right? Making sure that this is a really quick cutting, fast-paced show. And then it was, okay, making sure that the space is visually stimulating. And I remember I saw Steve Jobs directed by Danny Boyle, and he it was like all in like it's a really good film actually. I don't know why it got kind of buried, but Michael Fassbender played Steve Jobs, and it was really like between two scenes. Aaron Sorkin wrote a great script, and most of it took place on like on a stage or backstage of like one of his when he introduced the iMac, I think. But they had like this line, like just like this stripe down the wall, and I realized like how good that was for just creating some visual stimuli because lines, leading lines, diagonals, all these things, especially in film, like leading lines are great. So when I came into the office, I made sure that we put one of those lines. So I pulled from that, and I had the production designer, and she didn't know what I was talking about at first, but then she did it, and already the space came alive. But and made location when you don't have resources, location is so important. You can't stress it enough. So I made sure that we found the right location with some glass, boardrooms that I could shoot through. It had a stair set up to a second floor, and I was like, perfect. All right, I could do stuff with that staircase. Right, the stage is coming alive. I could have some blocking with, the boss coming down, them going up. I could shoot from down to the bottom, looking up. I could shoot down, looking up, looking up. So again, making sure that I got a space that had opportunities for visuals, right? Because you don't have a lot of resources, you only have one location. So make sure that that location is great, as best as you could possibly get with all the time you have of looking. And then yeah, making it as visual as possible. And then next came, okay, yeah, production design. But then for me it was props, right? And in the first meeting, it was literally like, although I'd go through the script and I'd be like, what can, because business actors need business. One, it engages the audience, but also it gives the actors something to do. So I was always thinking about props, right? What can these characters be doing? Wrote it in. But then even at the first meeting, I told the prop person, like, I just want a box, like at all times of like, you know, fidget spinners, gadgets, things that these people can be playing with, right? Because that makes it come to life visually as well. So always thinking about those things. Um, and then yeah, it was like for that particular project, it was like, okay, and then I'm gonna have this like slow motion language throughout as well, and I'm gonna have these cutaways. Um, and really trying to figure out how to make the scenes come alive visually, right? That's your job as the director. Once you get that script, like how am I making this fly off the page, pop off the page, come into the third dimension? Um, yeah, I mean, and always thinking about that stuff uh is super important. Oh, yeah, and then that the other thing I was gonna say about that is like how do I make the space you don't even always have to have a single location thing to use one location. And then so that particular project, we had one location, but then I had like all these cutaways to like, a person on a phone and she's at a pool party, or I had this scene with an old company and I have this scene with I'm like, how am I going to shoot all this? And I said, all right, you know what? Everything that's in the office, we'll shoot there, and then let's rent out the office next door with the little bit of money we had, or that was where we were eating lunch. And I was like, we're gonna just turn this whole thing into a green screen. And then we're gonna have one whole green screen day for all of those cutaways. So that's how, that's think creatively, like how can I use my resources? And then we did, and it was great, and we had one whole day with just all that stuff on green screen, right? And that's how we made the resources in the place. So just getting creative with like, what can I steal? What can I cheat? Um, and I did that a couple times, always doing low budget stuff. My feature, Useless Humans, was shot entirely like on this avocado farm, but we had all these other locations as well. So it was like, okay, let's go stage this casino over here with like a tight shot and some production design. We'll steal this here. We'll go over and we'll steal this at this, they had this like home like man-made beach. It's like, okay, we'll change this location to use that as another location. But yeah, just always thinking about what you can steal, what you can cheat. How can you use all the resources here to your greatest benefit, accepting what the universe, maybe I need to change something. And then yeah, getting creative, like, okay, we'll just do everything in green screen in this back room that we can't do here. I don't know. But yeah. Okay. What's your go-to method for troubleshooting when you don't have the budget for extra takes or reshoots? Get it right. Um, yeah, I mean, you're never gonna have the budget. I mean, even to, the bigger the budget goes, you still feel like strapped for time and you feel like you never have enough time. I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not on these huge things. Um, I know that I know that Stanley Kubrick, right towards the end of his career, he kind of got fed up with a lot of how the industry was run, and he just started doing things his own way. And the way he dealt with that was he just shrunk the crew size down to like a skeleton crew, right? He's like eliminated everything he didn't need. And then he can use that budget and shoot for as long as he wanted, essentially. Um, and uh and then he could use time as much as he wanted, right? So again, he eliminated all the crew he didn't need, kept the budget the same, and then he was able to, shoot at his own pace. I think Eyes Wide Shut was like the 3 year long production or something ridiculous. I don't know. But as far as for us on like the scale that a lot of us are working on, um, you know, when you don't have a budget for extra takes or issues. I don't know. I haven't ever done too many reshoots. I try to avoid them because it's hard to like, recapture that energy in that specific time. Obviously, studios use reshoots a lot and they have unlimited money and budget. But I would always plan it, when you're making a movie, when you're making a short, yeah, like throw the idea of reshoots out the window. Um, and then if you don't have a time for a lot of takes, you know, one thing you could do is have less coverage, right? So it's like, oh, I have this scene, on my first feature, that was kind of what I experienced, right? I had 15 days to shoot a feature length movie for like a few $100,000. And it was really difficult. So the troubleshooting on that was like, yeah, we didn't have an opportunity for a lot of takes. Um, the idea of reshoots, yeah, was never a possibility in my mind. And so on the daily, it was like I really would try to get things in like 2 to 3 takes, and anything that I could do in one, I would. And if I had, and that's the thing that a good director needs to know is like when you have it, right? The early directors, young directors, bad directors, right? They'll just keep going, oh, let's do another one. Yeah, I think we got it somewhere in there, right? One for safety. I think we got it somewhere in there. But the goal of a good director is work, doing the scene, working, doing the shot, working toward the best version of it. All right, got it. Moving on, right? Um, best version of it, with consideration for the rest of the time in the day, right? So you should be working toward that and move and knowing when you get it and moving on. And then if you get it in one take, right, what's the point of doing another? So on that feature, for me, it was like I had one actor who would always kind of nail it. And so if I was in the bind, I would just got in one take. All right, moving on. I would always ask, like, are you good? Like, do you want to do another one? It's like, if you think I got it, I got it. Okay, we're good. We're moving on, right? And then I would also on that shoot, like there was constant troubleshooting, or it'd be like in the day I'd be having to shoot like 8 pages of like some action or something. And then luckily I had another writer on set for those for that shooting. So I would usually be like, if I knew I was getting into a tricky place where I might not make my day, there was too much to shoot, I would go to him and I would be like, "Hey, can you look at the can you look at today's scenes and like eliminate anything that's unnecessary?" Like if I couldn't do it myself or have the time to think about it, and then he would go off and look at the next scenes in the day and he'd come back and he'd be like, "You know what? I lost this line, and this line. Okay, boom, you saved me, half a page. All right, good." And then, so it would cut anything that was unnecessary to the story, right? If it doesn't serve your story, if it's not advancing the plot, but particularly if it's not adding anything to your story, just lose it, right? If it's not the story, just lose it. And then for that movie also is like when I get into the same bind, that was just particularly difficult production. So I'm referring back to it. But, I would show up, I might have 4 shots for a scene, but I'd look at my watch. AD would be like, "Hey, we got like this amount of time for this." And so, I would just change it quickly to a oneer. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. I maybe have time for one shot. So let's do this instead. And then, I would literally just do things in one take. So I would say again, yeah, getting creative, eliminating anything you don't need for your story. Um, picking and choosing what you can spend time on is also helpful, right? Like on the show on Sales Are Dope, I had this opening shot that was a long oneer that we had to move all this furniture for. I had to like orchestrate the whole crew to move and pull stuff while the dolly's coming in. I had every actor and background in the scene. And if you watch the movie or the show, Sales Are Dope, it doesn't look like a difficult shot, but everybody was working there, and it was really hard. It was on a jib and a remote head, and it had to come down, and it's just a straight on shot. But like the ping pong table had to be pulled out. Everybody had to be like at the right place at the right time. Like pretty much the whole crew was working. It was a lot of fun. But I remember my AD, would come to me after like the setup or the second take, like, "Oh, we really don't have time to do anymore." And I was like, "Hey, like no, I'm taking all the time I want for this because this is the opening and it's super important. So it's gonna be worth it." Like, "I know, AD, and look, I AD a lot too. It's a hard job. You're the no fun. You're the Mr. Mrs. You're the no fun." Um, but I told her I was like, this is important. I have to do this, and we'll spend all the time we need on it. So again, pick and choose the things you could spend time on. And it's like I chose to spend time on that, and then but just know that that might take away time from the next thing. And so then I have a plan. All right, I'm going to cut down the shots in my next scene if I have to, but I'm going to focus on getting this right because this is important to me, right? Or this is the opening. This is the thing that need. And I think we did. I don't know. 15, take number 14 is used in there or something. Maybe take 10. I don't know. But we did a lot of takes and it was worth it. It was super cool. Um, I think that's it. That's it for our chat GPT and Doug questions. Did that trigger any other questions for any? We got a little bit more time. We don't have to use it, but if you guys have any other questions, you have me for 15 more minutes and I'd be happy to try to answer anything else. If you're still with me. I just feel like I'm talking to myself.
You're not. You're not. You're not.
I think we're all here.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Things you're working on? Oh, good. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is like anything, the only you gotta just do it, like and especially when you have no experience, that's the most fun time, Just pick up a camera and go just start shooting something, and that's how you're gonna learn with it with all this stuff. Like film school's like helpful, but again, the best part about film school is that you get people to make movies with, and you get to actually have that hands-on experience, And that's the only way you really learn how to make movies. I mean, so I look forward to seeing what you make, Zach, and the rest of you. But I'd love to see it.